I still remember the weight of the graduation gown on my shoulders, how it felt heavier than it should have, not because of the fabric, but because of the 2 empty seats in the audience. My parents weren't there. They chose my sister instead. Let me take you back to where it all started. Back to when I still believed that hard work and loyalty to family meant something. Back to when I was naive enough to think they'd show up for me. Just once. Growing up, I was always the responsible one, the one who didn't cause trouble, the one who got good grades without being asked, the one who helped with bills when I got my first part-time job at 16. My sister Emma was different. She was loud, charismatic, the kind of person who walked into a room and made it hers. My parents loved that about her. They loved her. I learned early that love in my family wasn't divided equally. It was rationed, and Emma got the larger share. When she failed her college courses, they called it finding herself. When I stayed up until 3 in the morning studying, they called it what I was supposed to do. When she spent their savings on a trip to Europe with her friends, they called it a learning experience. When I asked for help with textbooks, they told me to get another job. I did. I always did what needed to be done. I worked 2 jobs through college. I lived in a cramped studio apartment with a leak in the ceiling and a heater that only worked half the time. I survived on instant noodles and black coffee, but I made it. 4 years of sacrifice. 4 years of pushing through exhaustion and loneliness. 4 years of telling myself it would all be worth it when I walked across that stage and heard them cheer for me. Just once. I wanted them to be proud of me the way they were proud of Emma for simply existing. I remember the small things. The way my mother would light up when Emma walked into the room. The way my father would laugh at her jokes, even the ones that weren't funny. The way they would ask about her day, her friends, her plans, and then there was me. The afterthought, the one they'd glance at during dinner and ask, "How's school?" Before turning back to Emma, I told myself it didn't matter, that I didn't need their validation, that I was doing this for myself, but that was a lie. I wanted them to see me. I needed them to see me. 2 weeks before my graduation, I called them. I was so excited I could barely keep my voice steady. "Mom, Dad, I'm graduating summa cum laude. Top of my class. The ceremony is on the 23rd. I already reserved seats for you." Front row. There was a pause. Then my mother's voice, careful and distant. "Sweetheart, that's wonderful really, but Emma has a job interview that day." I felt my stomach drop. "A job interview?" "Yes," my father cut in. His tone was firm, decided. "It's a huge opportunity for her. A marketing position at a prestigious firm in the city. We need to be there to support her. You understand, don't you?" I didn't understand. I didn't understand how a job interview, something she could reschedule, something that happened to everyone, was more important than my graduation. Something I had worked for years for. Something that only happened once. "Can't she go alone?" I asked quietly. "It's just an interview, don't be selfish," my mother snapped. "Your sister needs us. You've always been independent. You'll be fine." Selfish. That word sat in my chest like a stone. I had given them everything. I had asked for nothing. And the one time I asked them to show up for me, I was selfish. "What about me?" I whispered. "Don't I need you?" "You're stronger than Emma," my father said like it was a compliment. "You've never needed us the way she does. She's more fragile, more sensitive. We have to be there for her." I wanted to scream. I wanted to tell them that I wasn't strong, that I was breaking, that I had been breaking for years and they just never noticed because I didn't make noise when I fell apart. But I didn't say any of that. "Okay," I whispered. "I understand." I hung up before they could hear me cry. Graduation day came. I put on my gown. I adjusted my cap. I walked across that stage with my head high and my heart hollow. I heard the applause from strangers. I saw families hugging their graduates, taking pictures, laughing, crying. I saw what I would never have. I collected my diploma. I smiled for the photographer. I left alone. I sat in my car in the parking lot for an hour afterward. I watched family celebrate. I watched parents cry with pride. I watched everything I had been denied. And then I drove back to my empty apartment and ate takeout on the floor because I didn't own a table yet. No one called. No one texted. Not that day. Not the day after. A week later, my mother finally messaged me. "How did it go?" 3 words, as if my graduation was a dentist appointment. I stared at those words for a long time. One typed and deleted a dozen responses. Finally, I didn't reply at all. Emma got the job. My parents threw her a party. They posted pictures on Facebook. Emma in a new dress, holding a champagne glass. My parents on either side of her with arms wrapped tight. The caption read, "So proud of our girl." I wasn't in any of the pictures. I wasn't invited. I saw those photos late at night while scrolling through my phone. I looked at their faces, at how happy they were, at how complete they looked without me. That's when something inside me shifted. The part of me that had spent years trying to earn their love, it went quiet. And in its place, something colder, sharper took root. I stopped calling. I stopped visiting. I stopped trying. I poured everything into my career. Every ounce of pain, every sleepless night, every moment I had felt invisible, I used it. I turned it into fuel. I worked harder than anyone else. I stayed later. I learned faster. I networked relentlessly. I made myself indispensable. And I rose. 3 years after graduation, I was a senior analyst at one of the top consulting firms in the country. 5 years after that, I was a director. By year 8, I was VP of operations. I didn't do it for them anymore. I did it for the girl who sat alone in that parking lot. For the girl who was told she was selfish for wanting to be seen. I did it to prove that I didn't need them, that I never did. And then, the offer came. CO. Not of some small startup, but of Vanguard Solutions, one of the largest marketing and brand strategy firms in North America. The same firm Emma had interviewed at all those years ago. The same firm that had rejected her after one round. I accepted. At 32 years old, I became the youngest CEO in the company's history. My face was on the cover of business magazines. I gave keynotes. I was profiled in Forbes. And my parents, they had no idea. We hadn't spoken in years. I had built an empire in silence. And I liked it that way. But silence never lasts forever. It was a Tuesday morning when I saw her name in my inbox. Emma Carter, application for Senior Marketing Director. I stared at the screen for a long time. My assistant had flagged it as part of the routine candidate review. She had no idea who Emma was to me, but I knew. I opened the file. There was her resume, polished, confident, a little exaggerated, if I was being honest. She had bounced between 3 companies in 8 years. None of the roles lasted more than 2 years. Her references were mediocre at best. She was applying to my company, the one I built, the one she didn't even know I ran. I sat back in my chair and let myself feel it. The irony, the poetry of it. For a moment, I considered rejecting her application outright. It would have been easy. One click, done. But that felt too fast. Too kind. I wanted her to get further. I wanted her to hope, to believe she had a real chance. I wanted her to come in, sit across from me, and finally see who I had become. So I moved her to the next round. The interview was scheduled for a Friday. I didn't tell anyone on the panel that I knew her. I simply observed from behind the glass during her first interview with the hiring managers. She looked different, older, more polished, but the same confidence was there, the same easy charm. She laughed at the right moments. She leaned in when she spoke. She made them like her. She always knew how to do that. But I also saw the cracks. The way she fumbled when asked about strategy. The way she oversold herself to cover the gaps in her experience. She was good at performing, but she wasn't good at the work. The panel was split. To wanted to move her forward. To didn't. I broke the tie. Bring her to the final round, I said. I'll interview her myself. They looked surprised. I rarely interviewed below executive level. But I wanted this. I needed to see her face when she realized. The day of the final interview, I wore my best suit. Charcoal gray, sharp, powerful. I had my assistant set up the meeting in the largest conference room, the one with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city, the one that made it clear who was in control. I arrived early. I sat at the head of the table. I waited. When the door opened and Emma walked in, I didn't move. I just watched. She was mid-smile, mid-greeting. When her eyes finally met mine, the smile froze. Her steps faltered. For a moment, she just stood there, staring at me like I was a ghost. Emma, I said calmly. Please, have a seat. She didn't move. You're the CEO. I nodded once. I am. She blinked, looked around, looked back at me. I didn't know. I know, I said. Sit down. She did, slowly. Her hands were shaking. I could see her mind racing, trying to process, trying to calculate how to handle this. She opened her mouth, then closed it, started to speak, then stopped. I opened her file, flipped through it casually, let the silence stretch, let her sit in the discomfort. So I began, voice even. Why do you want to work here? She stammered, started talking about the company culture, the growth opportunities, the brand reputation, all the things she rehearsed. But her voice was thin now, uncertain. I let her finish, then I leaned forward. Do you remember the last time you applied here? Her face went pale. That was 8 years ago. I continued. You didn't make it past the first round. Do you know why? She shook her head. Because you weren't qualified. You still aren't. The words hung in the air like a blade. Your resume is impressive on the surface, Emma, but I've done my research. You've never stayed anywhere long enough to deliver real results. You rely on charm and performance, and that works for a while, but eventually people see through it. Her eyes were wet now. She wasn't crying yet, But it was close. I've built this company on merit, I said. On people who do the work, who earn their place, not people who expect it to be handed to them. She finally found her voice. Why did you bring me here if you were just going to reject me? I smiled. It wasn't kind, because I wanted you to see me. I wanted you to know what I became while you were busy being the favorite. She flinched like I'd slapped her. I wanted you to sit in this chair and realize that the person you overlooked, the person who didn't matter, is now the one deciding your future. A tear slid down her cheek. This isn't fair, she whispered. No, I agreed. It isn't, but neither was watching my parents choose you over me. Again, and again, and again. She looked down at her hands. I didn't ask them to do that. You didn't stop them either. I was their daughter too. What was I supposed to do? Acknowledge it, I said quietly. Just once. You could have acknowledged that they treated me differently, that I mattered too. But you didn't. You just enjoyed being the center of their world and pretended not to notice I was disappearing. She was crying now, silently. Do you know what it feels like? I continued. To be invisible in your own family? To work twice as hard and get half the recognition? To beg for crumbs of attention while you got the whole feast? She didn't answer. I don't expect you to understand. You've never had to. She opened her mouth, closed it. She had nothing to say. You're not a good fit for this company, Emma. But I appreciate you coming in. I stood. The interview was over. She sat there for a moment longer, stunned. Then she grabbed her bag and left without another word. I watched her go, and I felt nothing. No satisfaction, no anger, just emptiness. 2 days later, my mother called. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity won. Hello? What did you do? Her voice was sharp, accusing. I'm sorry. Emma came home in tears. She said you humiliated her, that you rejected her out of spite. I smiled to myself. I rejected her because she wasn't qualified. You did this because you're still bitter about graduation. Grow up, I laughed. Actually laughed. Bitter? No, Mom, I'm successful. There's a difference. She's your sister and I was your daughter. But you didn't show up for me when it mattered. So don't ask me to show up for her now. Silence. Then my father's voice in the background. Let me talk to her. The phone shuffled. Sweetheart, he began, using that soft tone he used to use when I was small. I know we made mistakes, but this is cruel. Emma needs this job. Can't you help her? For family, I repeated slowly. You mean the family that skipped my graduation? The family that forgot I existed unless they needed something? That's not fair. You're right. It's not, but it's true. We're sorry, he said. We should have been there. We know that now. But you can't punish your sister for our mistakes. I'm not punishing her, I said calmly. I'm doing my job. She wasn't the right fit. That's business, please. My mother cut in. She's struggling. She needs this opportunity. You have the power to help her. Don't you have any compassion? I had compassion, I said. For years. And where did it get me? Sitting alone at my graduation. Eating takeout on the floor because no one cared enough to celebrate with me. We've apologized. No, you haven't. Not once. Not until you needed something from me. They went quiet. I built this life without you, I said. I don't owe you anything. Not my success. Not my position. And certainly not a job for Emma. You've changed, my mother said coldly. Yes, I agreed. I have. I stopped waiting for you to love me. And I started loving myself instead. I hung up. They called again. I didn't answer. Emma sent me an email, long, emotional, blaming me for ruining her life. I deleted it. Then, a week later, another email. This one shorter, different. I'm sorry. For everything. You deserved better. I see that now. I read it 3 times, then I closed it and moved on. Weeks passed. Then months. I stopped hearing from them. My company grew. I hired people who deserved to be there. I built a culture where hard work mattered more than charm, where people were seen for what they contributed, not who they knew. I mentored young employees who reminded me of myself. The ones who worked in silence. The ones who stayed late. The ones who felt invisible. I made sure they were seen. I became the person I needed when I was 22 and alone. And somewhere along the way, I realized something. I didn't need their apology. I didn't need their pride. I didn't need them to finally see me. Because I had already seen myself. I had become more than they ever imagined. More than they deserved, and that was enough. One afternoon, almost a year later, I received a letter in the mail handwritten from my father. I almost threw it away, but I opened it. Inside, he had written about regret, about realizing too late what they had done, about wishing they could go back and do it differently. He didn't ask for anything. He just said he was sorry, and that he was proud of me. I folded the letter and put it in my desk drawer. I didn't respond. Maybe one day I would. Maybe I wouldn't, but it didn't matter anymore. I had already won. Not because I hurt them, not because I rejected Emma, but because I survived them. I took the pain they gave me and built something beautiful, and that, in the end, was the greatest revenge of all.